Welcome to the Set to Lead podcast, the online mentoring platform for emerging and current leaders. My name is Marianne Samdi, leadership coach and talent development expert, and I will be your host.
Before we get started with the conversation, here's a brief announcement from Marianne. Your team needs you. New hire onboarding, team communications, team management, team motivation, and the list goes on and on. How effective are your efforts to create a high-performing team? Grab the free Team Effectiveness Survey and Checklist and pinpoint areas where your team could improve. This will ensure your team always stays on track and you always shine. Grab it for free at settolead.com. Now, back to the show.
Welcome, Robby, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on today, Mary. I'm so excited to be here and dive into this fun topic.
I'm excited too. It's going to be fun, and I think it's a little deep. It probably can get a little heavy, but good stuff for sure. Just so our audience knows what's happening, our show today is about integrity and the mind shifts we have to make to get there. But before we get into that topic, please tell the audience a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so my background comes from about 10 years now of mindset and peak performance coaching. I also work within companies on human capital, culture, and leadership. And I've had quite the journey myself, which has led me to developing a real deep passion for all things change psychology, and just human potential is really my obsession, and ontology, which is, the study of why we do the things that we do. And it's a huge passion of mine. And anytime I can get a chance to talk about how we can make people undeniable and make people their best selves, I'm always down for having that conversation.
And I'm just so happy you're one of those people because I enjoy it too. So, to get started, I wanted to share a quick stat with you first. So a recent Gallup survey in Europe and the US states the following. Only about 40% of employees in France, Germany, and Spain, and the UK, and 36% in the US think their employer would do what is right if they raised a concern about ethics and integrity. Why do you think that is?
Oh man, it's such an interesting stat. And I think, as a society in whole right now around the world, we have kind of a mistrust with leadership. And I think a lot of that starts with communication. At the top, we really believe on a culture basis of a company that, it's all about shareholder interest. It's all about the bottom line. It's all about the balance sheet. And that's what a lot of employees actually believe. And I really honestly think it's because of a lack of communication from the top down of just why we do what we do, what our core mission is, what our core beliefs are. And yeah, let's be honest, some companies are just bottom line focused. You've had plenty of stories of companies doing what's not right because of they're just money focused. And of course, those headlines are what's going to lead, instead of the amazing companies out there doing phenomenal good in the world. And they're making money, but they're making money by doing the right thing. Those headlines don't lead, right? If it bleeds, it leads. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's, part of it is an information bias, but I also think I also think a big part of it is our companies aren't doing a good job of disseminating the real culture of why. And these are our mission. This is our mission. These are our values that we stand by.
Are there any tips you could share with our senior leaders or those who are in high-level positions on how they can rid that information bias and share the right information with their teams and with their people so there isn't this disconnect or lack of trust?
Absolutely. One of my favorite things for senior leadership to do is, and it's kind of a bold move, but I think what it does is it puts people in the right frame of mind, is for senior leaders to actually have conversations with people in their company. And that conversation always starts out with this question: hey, why do we do what we do? Literally asking your employees, why are we in business? because that's going to help you gauge the temperature of the room and help you gauge where your employees are at. And, they're going to give you different answers, but unless they're coming back to you with your core mission and your core values of what you stand for as a company, it's almost like a great diagnostic tool letting you know that, okay, I need to do a better job of really relaying this message. So my companies know every day my employees know every day when they show up to work, this is why I'm here. This is why we do what we do. And this is why I love this company so much. One of my favorite companies I've ever worked for was USAA Insurance. And the reason I loved it so much was the people inside that company had an unbelievable mission that they were on every day. Because they're in financial services, which is very bottom line focused, but they knew who they were serving. And you could feel it as you walked around their home office of, we get to do this amazing service for the people that provide us freedom. We're doing this for our troops and the people that are overseas fighting for us. And just by having that company culture and that mission, you could feel it. And I think that's also what attributed to why they had so much fulfillment in the workforce.
I love that answer and that response, because you're basically pointing out you've got to be more than self-serving. You've got to be able to explain how you serve the people.
100%. I mean, at the end of the day, the reason I, call what I do human capital is that's what moves a business. It's you're producing a product, you're producing a service, but without the humans actually making the production and actually serving that service and connecting with customers and clients, then you don't have a business. Humans are the lubricant in every business. So we have to make sure that our company culture and our mission is at the forefront of those humans, because that's their motivation, that's their drive, and that's their fulfillment of why they want to show up to work every day.
And I'm sure that positioning won't make people trust you. That's not the one and all solution, but it definitely is a good start.
Right. I mean, we've all heard the saying, like, people don't care what you do until they understand why you do it. And I think that's, an amazing start to building trust and building company culture, is just really having that firm foundation of this is why we do what we do.
Another point I wanted to make. So we talked about how leadership can, position and start to message that why we're doing what we're doing to help instill trust. But once senior leadership is in line and aligned with positioning those messages, how can we cascade that down to the other teams, right? Because there's probably a reinforcement that's needed across functions, across different levels of the organization to make sure that messaging sticks, right?
Absolutely. And it's such a repetitive process. I a lot of the individuals I coach, we think that we can just do something one time and it be done. Like, a lot of companies I've walked into, they have their mission statement on the wall and like a little small plaque, and they think that's enough to disseminate this mission statement through their entire company and have their employees show up every day totally sold on this mission. I'm like, no, that's just letters on a wall, right? It's something that you have to repeat and repeat and repeat to your employees to make sure that they're constantly bought into the vision. But at the same time, going back to kind of the topic of this episode, is as senior leaders, we have to make sure that we're living it out. And we're, not just practicing what we're preaching, but we're actually preaching what we practice, right? We have to be showing everyone around us, including the customer, including just all the human capital, that no, this is what I stand for, and I'm living it out every single day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Robby, there are a few misconceptions out there regarding integrity. And I was thinking that I would share a few with you, and you could discuss how to reshape our thinking about each one. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Here's the first one. Integrity is the bold assertion of your conviction.
So for me, yes, it is a bold assertion of your conviction, but I really just believe integrity is honesty. Integrity is alignment of your words and your actions. And if we can just simplify it as that, I think we're making, a step in the right direction of, no, my actions are going to align with my words. And if I make a promise, I'm going to keep that promise. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So I think we can really just simplify it and just call it alignment of our beliefs, words, and actions.
But how do you deal with honesty and the fear of how it'll be received? So I think a lot of times we lack integrity because we want to be honest, but the fear overtakes us in terms of how people will react to your honest statements.
Absolutely. I mean, let's be honest. The fear of rejection is probably at the top of human fears, other than like public speaking and heights. And it's a biological thing. I mean, I don't want to get too deep in the science, but in the early days of man, if you got rejected from the tribe, it often meant your death, right? Because you were on your own and you no longer had a support system. So it's deeply ingrained in our biology not to, to do things that prevent us from being rejected. But at the end of the day, one of the things that I stand by, and I try to really get my people that I work with to understand, is it's always the right time to do the right thing. And no matter what, like, yes, there's a right and a wrong way to be honest. I'm not telling you to go put people down and be mean and be ugly about it. But at the end of the day, we don't want to brush things under the rug. We always want to speak our truth and live in a place of integrity, because we don't want to further problems. And I think a lot of times in companies, what happens is we don't see problems come up. We brush things under the rug because we're not facilitating the right environment for our employees to be honest. I see that so many times. One of the last companies I worked with, it was so evident that everyone was so scared to speak their truth and to speak up, even when these were ideas that 100% could help the company. 100% could solve problems that were costing the company money, but there was no culture of trust. There was no culture of, yes, please speak up. We've heard this term a lot called a learning culture. And I think that's what we have to do a better job of, is really creating a safe space for people to speak up. And then when they're wrong, we don't beat them down for it. We just say, hey, I appreciate that. I appreciate your feedback. We'll look into it and make the best decision we can.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely. Here's another one, Robby. Integrity is about right and wrong. Is that a myth?
I mean, who's to say what's right and wrong, right?
Right.
I think we're using integrity there when we should be talking about morality, maybe, as far as right and wrong. But once again, integrity is just you speaking your truth. And if you believe this is your truth, not from a manipulation standpoint, not from a transactional standpoint, but just the truth of how you believe we move forward in the right direction, then there is no right or wrong there, because I think that also goes into the fear thing we were just talking about. People are so scared to be wrong that they won't speak the truth, when maybe you just don't have all the data. Maybe you need to speak up and be wrong so you can collect the accurate data, so therefore you can move in the direction of right. So I don't really believe it's a right and wrong thing. I think that's just a perspective. I believe it's our job to constantly be asking questions, constantly speaking the truth, so we can at least put all the cards on the table, collect all the data, so we can make better decisions.
Absolutely. And I think this is a big one. A lot of people, I would dare to say, believe that it's about right or wrong, right? It's black and white. It's not always black and white. There's several other elements to it. There's multiple perspectives that we need to consider.
100%. I mean, one of the things that I've taken on in my own life is I want to be wrong. Like I want to present a hypothesis and be proven wrong, because I don't mind it, because I know it's just going to make me better. And I think if we can take more of that perspective of, no, this actually is just an opportunity for me to get better by presenting a hypothesis that may not be true, because it's just a scientific method. At the end of the day, every human is just living out the scientific method. We present a hypothesis, we test it against the market, and then we come back, learn, and present another hypothesis and test it again.
Yes, yes. I have another one, Robby. Integrity is obvious. It's obvious on what you should be doing.
Once again, obvious to who? This kind of goes back to, we all come from a different background. We all come from different stories. We all come from different cultures, and everyone living this beautiful existence we call life is dealing with something. And for you to say it's obvious, like, who are you to be on a pedestal to say that? I think that's, kind of what we're talking about pre-show, was we have to kind of bring some humanity back into business. It's not always about the metrics, KPIs, and SOPs. These are humans doing a human job. And I'm sorry, none of us are perfect. And, hey, I might have gotten a flat tire on the way to work this morning. My dog might have gotten sick this morning. We all come from these different stories, and we have to treat humans in the workplace like the infallible humans they are. And the more humanity we can bring back into the workplace, I think the more grace and the more patience we'll have with people to really elevate them to their potential.
Absolutely. And I see this a lot in the workplace and outside of it. When someone makes a decision that you may not agree with, and the first thing that some people say is they should have known better. And I can understand that statement, but like you said, we're all flawed.
100%. Yeah, like they should have known better. After 4 or 5 times of screwing up, getting corrected, and getting trained on something, at that point, yeah, you should probably know better. But a lot of times, and you see this with like relationships too, and it carries over into business, because business is nothing more than having relationships. We make assumptions about people, and we make assumptions about expectations about people. And, I expected them to do this. I assumed they'd do this. Like, well, did you accurately communicate that to them? Like, is this something that like you showed them you need from them? I was talking to a manager yesterday, and he was having trouble with his executive assistant. And I was like, well, I mean, is this something you explicitly told her you needed? And he was like, no, she just should have done that. I'm like, that's not how it works, my man. Like, you have to give people clear guidance of what you want and need from them. I used the example with him. I was like, it's kind of like knowing your spouse's love language, right? We have to clearly communicate how we give and receive energy and knowledge and training and all that. So we can clearly outline those expectations.
Thank you. Absolutely. Here's another one. Integrity is a matter of instinct and will.
Oh man. I do believe one of my beliefs, I know it's not 100% right, and there are anomalies to this, but I believe that humans at all times are just doing the best they can. Right. Like I said, we have our stories, we have our limiting beliefs, we have these perceptions of the world that, yeah, they do cause us to make mistakes from time to time. They do cause us to act out of integrity. But we could be acting out of integrity because of fear of getting fired, because of fear of rejection. And I don't think it's a matter of instinct and will as much as it is creating that culture and that safe space that allow people to openly communicate. So if it's not an instinct, or it's not, just something they're born with, then we can clearly communicate to them like, hey, no, this is actually what I need from you. Or actually, this is the right way to do that. One of my big beliefs is I love putting the ball in someone else's court. And what I mean by that is I'm going to give you every opportunity I can for you to be successful. And then by doing that, I'm going to put the ball in your court to rise to the occasion. I never want somebody I work with to not be successful because I didn't over deliver. And I think that kind of goes back to this, is we have to make sure that we're accurately communicating what we want and need from people. So therefore, we don't even have to worry about it being instinctual or a will. No, it's clearly defined.
Yeah. I have one last one for you, Robby, and this one's a good one in my opinion. breaches of integrity are usually the product of corrupt intent. So if you have a breach of integrity, you're just evil at
You
your
know,
core.
right. When we look at the research on this, like the actual numbers, the people who act out of malice is such a low number. Like the people who intentionally cause harm to another person is such a low number that any assumption along these lines actually shows you more about the person that's making the assumption than the world. When I hear someone say something like this, I immediately go to the thought process of, oh, hold on, what have you done that's corrupt, right? What have you done that you probably shouldn't have done? Why is this your default mode of thinking? Who, like, the old saying, who hurt you? So I immediately, when somebody has perspective like that, I like to challenge that perspective because it's just not what the stats show. That's actually a story they're telling themselves versus what's actually statistically being proven to be true.
Absolutely. Do you think, Robby, that you can practice integrity? And I know these are some of the things that you've shared during the episode today are ways to do that. But are there any methodologies or steps, tips you can share with us on how to practice and make integrity a habit in addition to what you've shared already?
Yeah, absolutely. So much of, let's just use the broad term, personal growth. So much of personal growth is a practice, and integrity is the same thing. We have conditions that we live under, and a lot of our past conditioning can actually predict our future unless we do the work. And something with integrity, I think it really starts with personal integrity and keeping the promises we make to ourselves. And that 100% is a daily practice. And it's not the easiest daily practice either. I mean, you tell yourself you're going to get up at 6:30, then you hit the snooze button 5 times and you're waking up at 7:15. Well, that's a breach of your personal integrity. You tell yourself you're going to, spend 30 minutes in the morning reading your book. Yet you say, you know what, I need extra 30 minutes of sleep. I'm just going to skip that today. I'll start tomorrow. That's a breach of your personal integrity. And what happens is every time you're out of alignment with your integrity, it actually erodes your confidence in yourself. And the way to think about that is if you have a manager that is always telling you they're going to do something you never do, how do you feel about that manager the 10th time that they told you they were going to do something for you and they didn't? The 5th time they told you they were going to give you a raise, yet they haven't given you a raise in 5 years. The time they told you, like, yeah, I'm going to get you that new piece of software to make your life easier, and they don't. After so many times of broken integrity, how do you feel about that manager? Well, we can take that same perspective and put it on ourselves. After so many times of you making promises to yourself and not keeping them, how are you going to, what kind of confidence are you going to have in your own word, right? It's that same relationship. The same relationship you have with another person is the relationship you have with yourself. So when we say something like, how do we increase our integrity? It's that. It's by you first keeping the promises you make to yourself. And you can have, one of the things I say to myself personally is, no, we do the little things right. Or I'll say to myself, how I do anything is how I do everything. So I'm going to do this little promise I made to myself because it'll help me keep the bigger promises that I make to myself. And by having those like little mantras or affirmations or whatever you want to call them in your life daily, it actually starts to help you be more in alignment with your integrity and increase your confidence in yourself, which we all know by increasing our confidence carries over to every other area of our life.
Excellent, excellent tips, Robby. Our episode today has come to an end, but before we go, would you mind telling the audience how they can follow your work?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking. So guys, you can follow me on all the social media, just at Robby D'Angelo, Robby DAngelo, or you can check out my website, www.robbydangelo.com. I love having these conversations, guys. This is what gets me going. If you can't tell, I'm a little bit passionate about these types of topics. So please feel free to reach out to me with any questions you have or anything you want us to dig deeper into. I love doing the research, and I love having these conversations. So please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Robby.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun.